recording.
Speaker. Hello, gorgeous people. How are you? How are you? Okay. You all know James is a repeat guest, and we all know James well. So quirky questions only, please. I will keep an eye out for them. Toward the end, we've got lots of questions. So I can't promise I won't revisit some of the stuff we talked about in the beginning, but I want to go deeper and unpack some of the good stuff. And I do, don't let me forget, there's a recent question I'm asking everyone because I want to get everyone's opinion. But James, we were just talking, and it's interesting because it brings me to a subject. Anytime I do an interview with somebody for the second time, I do normally, you guys, and it's funny because sometimes the guests get nervous and they send me, depending on how nervous they are, a little breakdown of what I'm allowed to ask, or I've done my research and this is probably a good format for you. And that's kind of like waving a red flag. But the first call, I like to go in cold because I like to find these things out at the same time you guys do. But the second call, I do a little bit more research because, I want to see, what else is going on with the person.
Oh
so I
my
looked
God.
up you and your reviews as Phantom. And James and I, in a nutshell, okay, I kind of had a little bit of a chat before the call. I know I said I wouldn't do that anymore, but we didn't cover all the good stuff, but we were talking about the few times we'd been around celebrities with like that aura or that I'd gotten. I told James about a time in LA when I'd been at an appointment on Sunset Boulevard in a building that had, I guess, supermodels in it. And I get in this elevator with like 5 supermodels. And you see these people like on TV and in magazines, right? I have never felt like we were from another planet. I'm sorry. Self-esteem aside, I was short. I wasn't even like the same breed as I couldn't, my mouth was on the floor, and James was talking about celebrity. But my question, James, is that when you played Phantom, and I was looking for reviews about you and things people had said, I have a feeling that you had some of that celebrity. Because by the way people were talking about you.
Truth be told, there was a woman who came to see one of my first performances who thought it was the other guy. And she just went up and down and wrote me a letter when she found out it was me. And she created a fan club. So I at one time had my own fan club.
Yeah, because they were like passionately to the point of crazy about you.
Yeah. Well, people are crazy about that show anyway, but
But how did that feel? Did it
it was very flattering. I things are fleeting. I knew it wasn't going to last very long, but it did last quite a while, and it was nice. They would take me out on my birthday, and they would take me out for Christmas dinner, and they would give me gifts, and I would do nice things for them, and it was sort of a branch out from the Michael Crawford fan club, because he wasn't doing it anymore until he started doing some other stuff, and they would follow him around. I mean, he did what that vampire thing? No, it wasn't a vampire thing. I can't remember what the other couple of shows that he did after Phantom on Broadway, but they would stay in touch and be involved with him. And I only met him once, but he's very nice, very gracious guy. It was flattering, and I did not take advantage or take any of that for granted, because fame in its own way is fleeting anyway. I mean, that's what George C. Scott said in Patton, because you have to be careful because fame is fleeting. Speaking of George C. Scott, I met him too once. It was just a thrill.
Okay, so when it's over though, it's fleeting, but when it's over, do you not ever find yourself feeling, I feel like it's like me remembering the days that I was like thin and fit and happy, and
I remember those days too. It was a long time ago.
You want to live in the moment. You really do. You want to smell the flowers and everything, but do you never find yourself at 2 a.m. going,
No,
Really?
It's like ruminating over some. I mean, I have my days when I ruminate over all kinds of weird stuff,
Yeah.
especially nowadays. But some of that is just a waste of energy and a waste of time. I'll think about it for a moment and I'll say, you know, like well, now I remember it fondly, but I don't think that I would ever want to be stuck back in there, because I know what it felt like and it felt wonderful. We talked the last time about peak
Yeah.
experiences, and I had some peak experiences in my career, and it's one of those things where I remember very distinctly and succinctly those peak experiences, but I will never live them in exactly the same way again. But yeah, I do have that memory recall, and I do remember those people very fondly. Some of them, you know, sort of stay in touch, but by and
I'm,
large, it's sort of just gone by the wayside.
you know, I'm unpacking, and that leads me to another question for you, but it also makes me think, because I'm unpacking. I know this sounds really stupid and trivial, but it's massive to me. Every time
Yeah.
this year, I get really, really homesick for America.
Uh-huh.
And in particular, the form that takes is food. I start wanting like food over there because that's the only thing I can't get over here is food. I can get everything else here just as much or more. But I realized, having gotten a big order from one of those shipped from, you know, what you miss, nothing tastes the same as it did. And it, even when I go back there, but it's not because, and I always thought they change, time changes.
Yeah.
It's not, it's I've changed. So
Yeah.
you're looking for the same feelings you had when you were a different person, but you change as a person. So you could get peak experiences still, but we're chasing the peak experiences, don't you think?
Right.
From when we were a different person, which brings
Yeah.
me to the person you were.
Yeah.
I'm interested in the difference between, because the reviews, another thing that stood out was your talent. And talent, I believe, isn't something you're just like born with and you just open your mouth and belt it out, right?
Right. Right.
So I'm wondering what the difference between how you related to your talent and your voice and your craft before you got Phantom, and then how you related to it during Phantom. Was it an obsession to get better and better every day? Was it a fear of letting go or losing it?
Well, the one thing that remained constant was I never lost confidence in it. I never lost confidence that I could do what I needed or wanted or potentially could do. I mean, from the moment I got into the show, and I wanted that role. I wanted to do that role, and it took 7 years of teeth pulling and cajoling and being an utter pain in the ass to my bosses to actually get that role, to get the understudy for that role. And then once I was in there, it was like, oh, he's pretty good. It's like,
Yeah, yeah.
okay,
I've
so
been
what's
telling
the
you for
problem?
7 years.
Yeah. Well, I came off stage one time, and Hal Prince was in the stage manager's office. When I would come off stage from the first scene, I would have to go right past the stage manager's office, and he was just standing there. I didn't know he was there. He's a director of the show, and I sort of knew he was there, but I wasn't going to let it affect me, because a lot of people, oh, Hal is here, we got to be good, you know. So I want to be good all the time, so
Yeah.
I'm not putting anything on.
So it was
And
you and your, it was between you and your craft then.
yeah, and he pulled me into the office right after music of the night, and he, you know, wanted to give me a couple of notes, which is, according to Actors Equity, not legal, but he's Hal Prince, so what are you going to do? So he calls me in the office, and he talks to me, and he says this and this and this, and when he did this, you know, try to do it this way, and blah 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 blah, and then he said, and I was getting ready to leave, I shook his hand, he said, oh, and that one part, I think it was like the crawl, when he finally gets the mask back and puts it on. He said, that one part, and I said, yeah. He said, perfect. And I said, okay. And that was validation enough that I was either in the right direction, and because Hal was no bullshit. Hal didn't flatter you. Hal didn't blow smoke up your ass unless because I saw him rip people apart. And
Yeah.
he is or was an intimidating presence, but just that one word made me feel really, really good.
So before you went on stage every night, what was the predominant feeling?
There was a woman in wardrobe that I was very friendly with. And I don't know that she ever dressed me. I think she did maybe 1 or 2 times when I did the role, but she was a dresser for somebody else. And we had a code. When I was on and I was doing good, she wouldn't say, you know, that was right. She didn't have to blow smoke up my butt either. She just said, your bow tie is really, really straight. And when I was bad, it was like, yeah, your bow tie's a little off tonight. So that was our little code when I was, you know, according to her anyway, the when I was on. But what pleased me most about that whole, well, a good part of that experience was the crew and the front of the house people, the ushers and the people in the front of the house. I get a little choked up when I think about it because they see it every night. They're there every night. They're watching everybody. They've seen everybody come in and go out and everything. And when they come up to me unsolicited and tell me things and say things, that's very, very satisfying.
That's lovely.
Because, you know, other actors can say, oh, that was wonderful, that was great. And then they'll go over to somebody else who was just shit that night and go, oh, that was wonderful, that was great. And it's like, who do you pay attention to? It's the old Robin Williams joke where he's traveling with his son, his little baby son, and he looks at Robin and goes, Daddy. And then he looks at the dog and goes, Daddy. It's like, you know, what does any of that mean? But when you know people who watch it night after night after night after night, and they go out of their way to come up to you and give you a compliment or tell you that, you know, what did you do there? Why did you do that? I had, God, talk about the crazy people that come back. Davis Gaines, who played the Phantom for a long time, he had his own sort of following. And there was this one woman who was, she had mental problems. And she came after the show one time because we share an alley with like 3 other theaters. And she came back in the alley and said, why did you do that? Why did you do it that way? Because she was just so set and rigid in the way that she wanted it to happen.
Oh, wow.
And just read him the riot act. And then the next night she came, she was independently wealthy. She would sit in the front row. We always knew when she was there because we could see her. She would dress like Christine and sit in the front row. So we knew when she was there. And she came back the next night and apologized profusely after he came out. And she brought him a bundt cake as a gift. And he took it down the wardrobe because he didn't know if it was poisoned or not.
I know, I'd be afraid to eat it.
Yeah. So he gave it to the wardrobe people who, you know, scarfed it right down. So everything was fine. But yeah, that's one of the things there was, I don't know whether there is anymore, but there was a real fanaticism with that show.
Yeah.
And that particular role, I mean, it's just larger than life.
There was an energy behind the comments people were making. There was an energy behind it. You could feel it years later.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, okay, so you're a narrator now.
Yeah.
Yes. And okay, let me throw this question at you. I'm gonna forget this one. And I'm actually, it's my new thing. I'm asking everyone that comes on what they think about this. Something came up on Facebook and everyone had a different, every response I got was a different opinion.
Okay.
So I'm collecting responses.
Okay.
So you do auditions, right?
Yeah.
We all do auditions.
Right.
And we all know that we should have buffers, you know, space between our auditions. Sometimes a book comes up and you're like, well, I could fit it in.
Right.
But then it comes closer to the time. At what point do you think, oh, well, I'm not getting this one after a week, after 2 weeks, oh, after 3 weeks?
You mean the gist of the book, or you're not getting it in on time?
I'm not going to be booked for this job. I've done the audition. They're not come back to me. And at what point do you consider, are you penciled in? Because it's different than acting, isn't it? Acting, you're penciled in until your agent lets you off. But at
Sort of,
what,
kind of.
yeah, and some people say
Or the show
contact the
closes or
publisher.
whatever.
Yeah, or the show closes. Some people
Yeah.
say contact the publisher and ask and say my schedule's filling up, but like that feels, we do so many auditions as narrators.
Well, it's
I'm not
something
gonna
that
be,
Johnny keeps on mentioning, Johnny Heller keeps on mentioning on his website. Don't tell me how far you're booked in advance, because publishers read that stuff. And
Mhm.
if you hope to work for publishers, any of the big, the big 5 or the big 8 or however many there are, and if you say, oh man, I'm booked up until April, they're going to say, well, why am I sending this person an audition, or why am I sending
Yeah.
them a book? I don't do that. I mention that I'm working on something, or I might be. I try to record one. I'm on the tail end of finishing up one now, and I just began to record another one because I just wanted to right brain, left brain. I wanted to take a break. One's fiction, one's nonfiction, and I'm prepping a new one that I was given a very liberal deadline on. So I'm not going to say what that deadline is,
Okay,
but
so let me
I
interject
try
here.
to ask for time.
But let me interject
I don't try
here.
to put that much pressure on myself.
But what if now I'm a publisher and I get a hold of
Mhm.
you and I
Mhm.
say, I have this book and it's like the book of your dreams.
Yeah.
Would you like to audition for it? And it would fit
Mhm.
nicely between that new one, right before that new one that you were given a lot of time on. And then they
Mhm.
don't get back to you after like 2 or 3 weeks, and
Right.
you don't feel well, or you'd like to take a holiday, or another
Right.
book comes up. Do you
Mhm.
contact them? Do you assume it's gone?
I do not assume anything. I have been offered some books by some publishers, and I've had to turn them down because I'm just busy, or I know that I can't deliver this to you within the deadline that you want, because
So your
I
dream
know.
book, you've auditioned
Mhm.
for it and they've not come back to you. What are you going to do?
Well, this is another thing that people need to realize. Auditioning for something and getting the contract are two very different things.
Right,
I don't think there's any shame in auditioning for something,
right.
because you can always politely turn it down.
Do
But
you
if you
let
don't
them
go
know?
that first step,
Yeah.
you're not going to get it.
So,
It's like the lottery. You have to be in it to win it.
okay, so you've done
So
the
you.
audition, though.
Mhm.
You've done the
Mhm.
audition,
Mhm.
and now it's been 3 weeks and you haven't heard back.
Right. I'm probably working on something in those 3 weeks anyway. So
But do you just let it go until and leave that week, that space
I put it
open?
out of my mind until until the signatures on the dotted line. I put it out of my mind.
But what if
I
they never
don't.
get back to you and then you're a week without
So
work?
that's their loss. I don't care. But the thing is that since I started doing this, I think with 2014, there hasn't been a day that I haven't been in that booth. There hasn't been a single day
Yeah.
that I haven't been in that booth for some reason or other, with very few exceptions when I had to go out of town for some family stuff. But there hasn't been. I mean, this is a 7-day-a-week thing with me.
Yeah.
I
Are
mean, I
you
was
not
in there.
feeling health things? Because I'm the same. And
No,
I started to
I
feel
am
health
generally a very
repercussions.
healthy person. I don't know why, but I always have been. I don't take any medications except for, a daily vitamin and some supplements that were recommended to me. I take a vitamin D, and I take a vitamin B complex, and I take a multivitamin. But as far as, and massive Advil, because I have aches and pains all over the place. But other than that, I'm generally a very healthy person. I'm fully vaccinated and boosted and all that other kind of stuff. I don't get sick because I've been a singer most of my life. I know how to power through those allergies. So for me, anybody who will listen to me, I think the key to vocal stamina is proper breathing. Breathing from the diaphragm, diaphragmatic breathing like a singer does. Except for getting a virus or something, I mentioned this the last time, I have never lost my voice.
But did
And
you
I
go
have
on sick when you were in theater?
Oh, sure.
So,
There are, I was doing a show at the Indiana Repertory Theater, and no understudies. You don't have understudies. And I'm doing 8 shows a week. And yeah, I had to go on. And I think I even had strep throat, and it was I can't remember what the show was, but I was one of the leading characters in the show, and I had to sing all the time. And I just, they sent me to the local doctor, and they just like pumped me full of penicillin and
But,
and all these other drugs to keep me going.
but I have a
But
question, because that's
yeah,
bred into you, right, from the theater, because I was that girl. I remember I fractured,
yeah.
I don't know if I mentioned this in the last one, I think I might have. I fractured my wrist and my arm and everything
Hmm.
right in between, like in the middle of a show. It just went on with the cast and everything. You just do what you have to do.
It's like I was just doing something before we did this. I was trying to finish up a couple of paragraphs, and my dog was downstairs. The mailman showed, or the mail carrier, sorry, showed
Mhm.
up. That one be PC, and I'm talking, and I thought I heard a bark, but I wasn't sure, and I had to play it back. And yes, indeed, there was a bark there, so I had to re-record that passage because I didn't want that bark in there.
Yeah,
Um, but I have pretty good ears for that kind of thing, so I don't want to say I'm overly critical of some of the things that I do. Punch and roll saves my life because I can get, to the end of a sentence or to the end of a paragraph or something like that, and all of a sudden I have some kind of mouth click or some kind of weird thing will happen. It's like, ah, shit, I got to do that again. So I'm constantly doing things over again. I mean, it's even a matter of articulation. If for some reason I have what I call a wet mouth. A lot of people have a very dry mouth, so they get
yeah.
these mouth clicks that are from dry mouth, so they stay hydrated. Well, I'm sort of the opposite. I have a very wet mouth, so when I get like the girls that I would work with in Phantom, when I would get to the end scene, it's like take a blanket, because or raincoat, because I'm spitting all over them. I'm a spitter. And there was one woman. I was doing it. It's the "You Try My Patience," and it was patience, and I did. There was this big thing that just came out of my mouth, and she went. It's like, and the whole lot. I saw it. I don't know where the audience saw it. But it was like, and I went off stage. I said, "Sorry, sorry, I spit all over you." But yeah, I'm a spitter.
But I think it's better
Uh,
than the alternative. It's good. It means you're hydrated, right?
yeah, but the thing is that with I don't know whether it was Travis or there was somebody that was doing some things on either TikTok or what the one of those platforms where you watch them read, and they was going along, and all of a sudden all this stuff was coming out, and it hit, okay, take a moment.
Oh, see,
Okay,
this is
let's take
why I
that
don't
again.
do
Yeah.
Discord.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I would be, well, it's like that even at the SAG-VO lab or taking classes with like we were talking before. I took one of Johnny's classes with Sean Pratt about a month and a half ago, or any class of PJ Oakland's class or anybody's class. I'm not one of those people that, so who's next? I want to go. I want to go. No, that's not me. I am a type A personality. I know that. I'm an extrovert. I know that. I will talk your ear off like I'm doing right now, but to get up and read in front of a bunch of people, that intimidates the shit out of me. And it takes me a long time just to get the nerve and get my nerves settled where I can actually do that in front of people. And I have to give myself, we were talking about this before too, I have to give myself permission just to make mistakes, because it's not an audition. You're being coached, and you're
Can
being
I
coached
offer
for a
you
reason.
something though?
Sure.
I used to think, because I hate it, cannot stand it. And I
What?
used to think, oh, you just need to get over the reading in front of the other narrators. When they all go together and like read in front of each other and then get criticism in front of each other, it feels like showing up for a flogging to me.
Yeah.
And I know that it's not the case, but I think I realized what it is. It's the reason I don't do well in group classes or environments.
Mm.
I'm the same as you. I'm a talker and I'm an extrovert. So when I'm in a group, I'm focused out and I'm not concentrating on what I'm doing. I'm paying
Right.
attention to
Well, the
the
one thing is,
crowd.
Yeah, one thing is I took PJ's class maybe year and a half ago. I
I
think it
did
was
do his,
yeah, it
but
was
he's
long
so
before.
wonderful, isn't he?
Yeah,
He makes you feel like you're a
yeah,
superstar.
but it was long before COVID. But
Yeah.
one of the things, I mean, the first day was like with the accent stuff, and the next day was to, you know, read actually in the studio. And uh people were getting up because I think how many different interpretations can you do of those two words? Uh, I think the idea of being coached is to work on something that you're having a problem with, or to work on something that you want to improve on, or to work. But people were coming in with, oh, I already did this book, or and there were some people that I had seen in class after class after class after class, and they would bring the same piece in,
Because they're
and it was
going there to showcase themselves, which is what they're
exactly.
supposed to
And
do, is
that's
be
just it.
vulnerable.
It's not an audition. It's not
Yeah.
something that you're going to impress people with. It's something that you want to work on with whoever it is that's conducting the whole
Right.
thing.
But you see, when
And you
there's a
have to
group
get,
of people, James,
yeah,
I'm not going to learn, because I'm going to end up with if I go to a group, 13 people, I've got 13 new Facebook friends. That's
well,
it.
yeah. Well,
Not,
the nice thing is that there are those people that are going to fall by the wayside that aren't. I mean, there's this. When I first got to New York, I befriended his casting director, and he let me sit in on a casting session one time. It was for, you know, musical. He was a musical guy, and he was casting for a musical. And this woman came in and sang All That Jazz from Chicago. And, you know, she started and it was, you know, downtown, I'm going to paint the town, da, 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 da,
I love that song.
and all that jazz. And she sang it, and he let her get through it. And he said, do you have an up tempo? And she said, no, but I can sing this faster. So she started it and went back into the same groove. And it was like, thank you. It's 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 the it's not an audition. It's something that you want to improve on. It's something that
Yeah.
you're there because you want the wisdom of this person who is teaching the
And
class.
see, I
You
have to
don't
be
want to show
one-on-one for
off
that.
for your peers.
Right, exactly. I have to be one-on-one for that. I have to
Yeah.
pay more
I
and
mean,
have
I show
private
off in the
coaching.
hallway.
Because if there's an audience, I'm going to be like performing, and I'm got an
Oh, please.
outfit
I'm
on and
performing
I'm
all the time. I'm
impressive.
performing right now, for crying out loud.
Yeah. No, you're not. You're just, well, Laura says she's the opposite. She has to go earlier on, so it's over and done. Only then can she
Well,
relax and
Laura and I
focus
were in that
better.
same class that same weekend.
Yeah.
And yeah, and what's nice about those things, and I know you probably don't like them, but what is beneficial about those things, like at the SAG VO lab, they only take 15 people. It only seats 15 people when you go to the physical lab. But in these things, I don't know if Johnny limits the number of people that come in, but you know, sometimes there are a lot of people. I can't remember how many people were in that session that weekend, but there are people that are going to fall by the wayside. You just take that for granted. That it's not that they have no business being there. It's just that they're at a different, I don't even want to put it in levels, but they're in a different place than you are, or that the
Right.
instructor is, and the instructor is trying to help as much as they possibly can. It's like there was one woman that I worked with who studied with the same voice teacher that I studied with, and he told me that when she came in, he would tell her, don't come back. He was trying to discourage her from coming back because she was just tone deaf. She couldn't carry a tune in a bucket, and there wasn't anything that he could do to help her. And I always thought that if you could talk, you could sing. If you could, and evidently that's not true. I mean, I've always been a singer. I've always had music running in my head, but she was just completely tone deaf. And he had to actually discourage her and say, I'm taking money under false pretenses here. I
I know
cannot help
Helen
you.
Lloyd has had to tell people, new people, a
Yeah.
few times. She's had to say, I don't think you're ready,
And
at this point
it's a
yet.
hard truth for people to learn.
But
There
also
are
your
those,
motivation, though.
yeah,
It's
well,
not
there
just
are
skill,
those
it's
that
personality.
yeah, well, there are those that have the desire, and desire isn't
Yeah,
enough.
yeah.
There has to be some innate talent. involved. It's like,
Yeah.
I keep on saying that, you know, you to be an effective narrator, you have to be an actor, or you have to have some kind of performing experience, or whether you're fronting a rock band, or whether you do speeches at the local Kiwanis Club, or you're a motivational speaker or something like that. You have
A
to have
pole
some kind of
dancer, something
performance.
in front of an
Yeah,
audience.
exactly.
Yeah.
Pole dancer.
So, well, that takes
Something
some chops. I'm
never going to do.
serious.
But yeah, you have to have some affinity for it. You have to have some
Yeah.
aptitude for it. And that's, I don't want to go to the nature nurture thing, but I think some of that is inborn. I knew from an early age that I had the ability to be an actor and to
But
be a
I'm going to
singer.
challenge you here. I
Yeah.
still think, and Kim said, bring your weak to learn how to be stronger. But I'm going to challenge you here because you were born with the ability and the talent, but
Mhm.
you were also born with a personality that is, you're very people savvy. But you're very people savvy. You might not feel like you're always comfortable, but you always come across as comfortable. For instance, because I know that I can act, and I know that if I get a one-on-one coach, I can, you know, I'm good at being teacher's pet.
Mhm.
But I realized maybe my motivation for things like the narrator's retreat, I'm so jealous. I would go just to meet Johnny and Joanna, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, Johnny's Splendiferous thing is very different than APAC, where APAC is more of a social meet and greet and schmooze and make connections kind of thing. But Johnny's thing is kind of a working thing.
Yeah.
And even if you're not up there on the stage being coached by somebody, or you're getting people like Scott Brick and PJ Oakland and Paul Allen Rubin and Joanna Perlin and all
You
these other
learn a
people.
lot, huh?
Yeah, Hillary Huber and all these other people pontificating on
Yeah.
what this is, rather than saying, oh, you got to make this connection, you got to meet this person, and you know, I don't know whether I'm that good at that. I mean, when I was a young starving actor in New York, there was something called the Ross reports, where you would get all the agent listings, and I would actually pound the pavement. I would get my pictures and resumes in my little briefcase, and I would square out a couple of blocks of New York, and I would go from building to building to building. And I would, if they knocked on the door and they didn't answer, I would shove the picture and resume under the door. Or if they did answer, I'd go in and say hi and introduce myself and hand them something. But that was a lot of work for very, very little payoff in the end.
Yeah.
And I just don't, at my point in life right now, I don't have the energy to do that anymore. I just really don't.
Well, the world,
yeah.
World's changed. Things are so
Yeah.
much easier now because everything's connected, everything's online.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I would still,
But even
miss,
so, I
like,
mean, you know,
meeting people like
you
Johnny,
see,
James.
yeah.
You feel like not seeing. I'm not a hugger, and real life is really overrated. But some of my friends, I'm like, I want to meet them.
Johnny's always surprised when I hug him. I mean, he comes up to about here on me. So
yeah, I would definitely have to wear a sign. Don't
yeah.
hug. No.
I didn't grow up a touchy-feely person, but I sort of grew into that. And if people are welcome to that, I will. If people are not, I understand that they're not.
Yeah, it's reading the body language, because
Yeah.
some people don't read it. We went to get our boosters, and the woman behind me was literally flat up against my back for an entire hour in the waiting room. I was literally ready to run out of the place.
I always found that the really, really interesting thing in New York, living in New York and going on the subway and walking down the street and everything, is that even though it's packed full of people, you know, you got a subway car that is packed full of people,
you're alone.
There is this little space between everybody.
City space. I love city space.
That you just know, I'm not touching you. I'm really, really close, but I'm not touching you.
Yes.
And I was zoning out one time on the subway. I was just daydreaming. I was thinking about something, and I was staring at this guy, and I didn't mean to do it. And he said, "What are you looking at?" And I went, "Sorry, I didn't mean anything by." I was daydreaming. I was lost in something, and I was just staring at this guy for no reason at all. And that was early on. And I learned that, you know, you put your New York face on when you're in New York, because you
Yeah.
don't look anybody in the eye. I would be walking down the street and people go, Jim, Jim. And it's like, I didn't even see them because
Yeah.
I had my New York face on. I had my blinders on. But yeah, there's these group things. I think they are beneficial in that you can learn from watching somebody else. I don't want to say make mistakes, but watching somebody else improve after just a little bit of direction.
Yeah, see, I
can,
don't get anything from that, because what
Yeah,
I'm learning is
I
I'm
do. I
sitting
mean,
there
it was
feeling
that one
for
thing that
them.
we talked about. I was doing a reading for Sean, and it was from this book called On the Line, which is the history of a chorus line, because it was nonfiction day. And the beginning, the opening premise is you're standing in the balcony of the Schubert Theater and you look on the stage. There's a white line painted on the stage, and there are numbered markers for dancers. The rest is black. And I took that pause because two people before me just plowed on through things. And Sean was saying, no, leave some of the empty space, leave the spaces there. And I knew that that was important. The rest is black. And it paints the picture.
What you were doing
other than saying
magically is
the
putting
rest
yourself
is black
in their shoes while they were
Yeah,
learning.
there was no comma there. There was no anything there. I put that pause in myself. And those are little acting challenges that you can do for yourself. And I constantly think of those things.
Yeah, see, I'm too
From those
people oriented.
experiences.
I'm sitting there thinking, oh my God, the poor thing's nervous. Oh, I hope she's okay. She's going to make it through.
Well,
and then I'm like, why is he giving her that feedback? Look how stressed out she is.
Everybody's nervous when they read in front of people.
Yeah,
Everybody, if you're not, you're not human.
Yeah, see, that's the thing though. All those people nervous, I feel too much of that. I'm too focused on how they're feeling. So I absorb the feelings of everyone in the room.
It's you have to. It's again, it's my right brain, left brain kind of thing.
You turn it off.
I think I can compartmentalize that.
I like that. I like that.
To where I'm not I'm empathizing with them, but I'm not feeling their embarrassment, because you know, sometimes when somebody's, especially with these online things, where you get a piece of copy and everybody gets either the same piece of copy, or you can choose from 5 different pieces of copy and read, you know, a book or something. They do this on the SAG Foundation VO Lab kind of thing all the time. There's one coming up for like Halloween things for horror stories that I signed up for, which is going to be kind of cool. And they were encouraged to wear costumes.
That's my kind of thing.
Yeah. But somebody's bound to read the same copy that you're reading. And my fault is that when somebody else is reading, I'm reading my piece of copy. People, when I went to the live SAG VO Lab, I knew would get pissed off at me because I'm trying to mumble under my breath, but sometimes I didn't succeed. So people are in the booth reading, and I'm sitting in the back row going, and people are going like, Jim, shut the fuck up. But I'm trying to find where my stumbling blocks are for this, because I want to be perfect when I get up there, which I'm not. But yeah, so you're listening to somebody reading the same thing that you're going to read in a minute, and maybe you're going to change your mind and say, oh, they read that really, really well, so I'm going to read something else because I don't know that I can read it as well as they do. You're
practicing. I'm listening to them reading it, and I'm thinking, oh no, I wish I could just tell her this before she goes on.
Well, the other thing too is
I can get her at the coffee machine and make her feel better afterwards.
That's not your job.
And unfortunately, I forgot all about the fact that I should be actually looking at the script.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing with when I'm listening to audiobooks, and I listen to a lot of audiobooks. When I'm walking my dogs, when I'm going to the grocery store, when I'm cooking dinner, when I'm, you know, in between being in there in my booth and doing anything else, I'm usually listening. When I'm cleaning the house, I have to turn it up because the sweeper's too loud. But I listen not only for the enjoyment of the whole thing, but I'm listening for technique, and I'm listening for delivery, and I'm listening to, why did they say that line that way? I don't know whether I would have said it that way. It still makes sense, but and I'm getting lost in that kind of thing sometimes.
Yeah.
Which is either the way you look at it, it's either a fault or a good thing. I don't know, but
I think
I'm
it's a good
constantly
thing.
listening, saying I wouldn't have said it that way.
I
It
think
makes
it's a
sense.
good thing. You
Okay.
don't turn the actor off.
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing. When you listen to when others are reading the same script, do you ever start editing? Kim wants to know, and adding words or switch words around when you read?
I try not to. I try to read verbatim what's going on. There was somebody posted something just this afternoon on Facebook about am I supposed to read everything, or is it okay just to skip some stuff? And the answer is no. You want to be true to the author's words, but at the
Wait, they're
same
talking about an
time,
audiobook. They said, is it okay to
yeah,
skip some stuff?
yeah. They want to know, what could you get away with? Like if you skipped a word here or there or something like that. It's like, well, and yeah, it was a newbie. I see Jonathan shaking his head, but it was kind of a newbie.
I know, and we have to be kind. I remember it was a master class in kindness. Somebody posted on Facebook, I might not be getting this completely right, and we forget what it's like to be completely new. And somebody posted, I heard on TikTok that, and I'm wondering which is the best way to do it. Do I go through a book and read like the man's voice lines all together at once, and then the woman's voice all together at once, and then paste it together after?
Right.
And you had such a lovely response, because I've got to tell you, I went on TikTok and do I cut the book up and then edit it all together? Triggered the hell out of me.
Well, the problem with that, and I can't remember, I remember sort of that kind of thing, and it happens again and again and again and again. But the problem with that is there's no interaction between the characters. If you're just saying one person's lines and then trying to splice it in with another person's lines, or you're creating a different voice for that other person,
You're
there's
not
no
acting.
well, you're not acting, but you're not interacting between the characters.
Right.
There's no give and take. It's one-sided from both sides.
Acting is responding. Acting
Yeah.
is listening.
Yeah.
Who are you listening to?
What's
Yourself?
the George Burns thing? Good acting is if you say somebody knocks on the door and you say come in, and they come in, that's good acting. If they don't come in, that's bad acting.
Yeah, try to do that in those books with a man with a naked, you know what I mean? You're gonna do the sex scene, do all her parts first, then all his parts.
Oh baby, oh baby. Yeah. No. But somebody was talking about all the words, and I just gave an example of one of my things that I have to correct all the time are just stupid little stuff. Like I will say instead of the, or vice versa. And depending on the context of the sentence, they each mean a different thing. Because if you say something, 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 it may be one of many, but it's something. But if you say something, 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 the something, 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 that's a single entity, right? Yeah. So you're talking general and you're talking a specific. And those are things that you need to make a distinction. And those two words are just very easy to fuck up because
yourself. Like you can have like entrepreneur. Unfortunately, I say I won't say effing, but I say the whole word, preneur. And I do it now so often that I accidentally do it while I'm doing the book.
Oh, listen, if I were to record all the outtakes that I've ever done, it could fill its own book. It's weird.
So many people are coming on to say, in Facebook groups, I always look for James's answers first. Your talents and accomplishments are amazing. Yeah. People are all thanking you though, James, because you do.
I always tend to be very verbose anyway.
But you're not mean. You're not mean, no matter how.
I try not to be, but at the same time, I had to answer somebody today just saying, sorry, but this is a hard truth, and it's tough love. But somebody was complaining about, I got this book and I'm reading through it and everything, and there are all these markups and all this other kind of stuff. And I said, for one, we're talking about ACX. According to ACX, you are due a record ready manuscript. If you didn't get that, then there's something wrong. 2, you always read the book first. So if you accept the job and you find out that this thing is riddled with mistakes and there are all kinds of weird things, turn it down. Don't do it. You're not being paid to be a copy editor. You're being paid to talk into a microphone and interpret the author's words. If the author can't get those words in the right order and make sense out of them, then your job is 3 times as difficult. So you're not a copy editor.
You have to have courage at the 15-minute point. That's and I'm really clear. We're not completely going ahead until that 15-minute sample. You tell me you are 100% happy, because I don't mess. Craig has a question for you.
Sure.
Massive appreciation for your technical advice in the private groups. Do you have craft advice for improving self-direction in the booth? That's a really good question, Craig. Thank you.
Self-direction is the primo bitch of narrating. It really is. There are, Penguin Random House and Audible Studios and some of the major ones, I think Macmillan does too. If you were working with them, they hire a director to work with you. Self-direction is really, really hard because, first of all, you're wearing a whole bunch of hats at the same time. You're the performer, you're the recording engineer, and you're listening critically to yourself to make sure that what you're recording is good stuff, that you're not too close to the mic or you're not too far away from the mic, all that kind of stuff. But directing yourself, my criteria, and whether I'm a good narrator, a bad narrator, or a mediocre narrator, is my audience's thing. I do what I do, and I try to do the best I know how at the time that I can do it. And if people like it, people like it. If they don't, they don't. I don't worry about that. But which is why I don't look at my reviews. I just read one recently that just made me laugh. It was a book that I just finished. And the weird thing is, I'm going off on a tangent here, but the weird thing is I looked at the sales numbers. This was a royalty share, and it was a book about a serial killer, Jeffrey Dahmer type serial killer. But he was during the Watergate era. So it wasn't publicized heavily.
Was it a real one?
Yeah, it was a true thing. And it's really, really gory. It's really nasty stuff. I mean, it was some of it was just uncomfortable to narrate, but
really,
yeah, but it's really nasty stuff. And it's 19 and a half hours long. But yeah.
How many people did he kill?
He's attributed to about 18, but there was like a list of 28 possibles. And this was down in Florida. Yeah. But the thing is that I looked after we got it up and it went on Audible. It was a royalty share thing. And it's the fastest selling thing that I've done so far. It sold in the first month. It's sold in the first month, 2,300 copies of the audiobook.
Wow.
And one of the reviews, I don't read the reviews, but I just looked at it because I was looking at my sales numbers, and I saw a review and said, the book is really well written, and it's a really true story, and it's a really nice story. But that narrator, I just wanted to stick pencils in my ears. It's like, okay, it just made me laugh. I showed it to my wife, and she laughed too. And she said, "You bleeding from the ears yet?" And I was like, "No."
Yeah, I can't even. It's so subjective. It's so weird, the whole review thing.
That's why I don't pay attention unless they absolutely know what they're talking about. And the thing is that I don't review other people's work because not that I don't feel qualified, but I won't do that because my sensibility or my idea of what they're doing, I may have said that line differently. I may have given a different inflection. I may have chosen a different voice for that thing.
I'm just going to lie out of my ass because they're my friend.
I will do it confidentially to people that I know.
Yeah.
I have my friend Tom Jordan out in California. He and I rag with each other all the time. It's like, oh man, I just listened to this book and so, and it's just horrible. I couldn't get through it. And then he'll say, something, and it's like, this was really wonderful. You got to listen to this. So we're making recommendations to each other all the time. But life is too short now for me because I'm closer to that side of the grave than I am to this side. So I won't give more than 20 minutes to something that I just can't listen to anymore.
But you also have to protect your headspace. I'm starting a thrill. I'll be honest. I have a couple of thrillers coming up, and one of them I'd like to do really well at. I'd like people to like it a lot. But the people that have done it before me, and the people that have done it before me are quite well known. And what people see as very successful narrators. So I bought the audiobooks, the past kind of parts of that like series, so that I could like see, you know, what I'm gonna, but I've not listened, because I thought to myself, no, what are you gonna do? You're gonna compare yourself or imitate, or
I
what?
don't know how beneficial that is. I mean, I was offered the fourth in a series that had been done by two different narrators, and I didn't mean to ghost this guy, but I sort of did, because I didn't really want to do it, because I had talked to the other two narrators and they said, you know, it's not, the books aren't selling well. And it was a royalty share, and the books aren't selling well. And, you know, you go into this knowing that. And so I put this guy off for like 2 years, and he finally came back to me, and I let him do the out. I said, okay, to do this, I would need a royalty share plus contract. I would need to get such and such money per finished hour on top of the royalty share to do this, because, then it was like, you know, crickets. So I gave him the out rather than saying, no, I don't want to do this.
Yeah. Because that's,
and I do that a lot.
I'm gonna have to, I promised myself. It's so hard, because like I could chat with you for hours and hours and hours. You might have me knocking on your door next year, but I'm gonna have to, because my new promise of trying to be timely, I have to hit you with a question, James.
Okay.
For the audience, in the next 60 years, what words of wisdom, funny joke. Wait, I have another question first. Sure. I can't stop on time. I'm sorry, guys. I promised I wouldn't run over. One more question.
I will talk as long as anybody wants me to talk.
What would you love? What would you love? Like, if you could win the lottery or have anything you want tomorrow, like your biggest dream, live somewhere amazing, do something amazing. What's your dream? What would you just love to have happen tomorrow or this year?
What I would love?
Yeah. And don't think if money's not an object, anything. What would you love?
I have out in my garage a full woodworking workshop. We talked about this before. I make things like this. And I fell in love with woodworking. I don't know when, but I would want a space that I can actually do things in. Right now, I've got so many machines in my workshop that I have to move things out in my driveway so I can do work effectively. I want enough space that I can have all of my machines in there.
Like a man shed. With like a disco bar.
I want a she shed. I want a he shed.
With like a disco bar.
He shed, she shed.
Yeah.
No,
I want, that would be easy.
I want a workspace that is comfortable, that will fit all my tools, that will remain clean with no sawdust all over the place.
Are you working? Are you going to make that happen? Is that something you're going to work on?
I don't know. My criteria when, my wife and I keep on talking about retiring and that kind of stuff. Oh, I see that Rebecca has the same fan that I have.
James.
Yeah, no, I love that fan.
Yeah,
I lost
shiny.
my train of thought now.
See, this is why
people don't get old. Getting old is a bitch, along with squirrel. Yeah.
Why are you not making it happen? Retirement shed.
My criteria when we moved from house to house to house was to have a bigger garage, and I sort of got that, but I kept on filling it up with power tools. I have 14 routers. Why I need 14 routers, who knows, but I love the machine. So I have 14 routers. Every garage sale I would go to, somebody would be selling a router for like 50 cents and I would just buy it to have it. It's in a box someplace in my shop.
You need to build yourself a shed. Give yourself a deadline and build yourself a shed. You'll enjoy the building.
I mean, we've been talking about, my wife is still working and she's getting to the point where she doesn't want to work full time anymore. And we're talking about thinking about retirement and what we want to do. And if we want to move to a place, because we don't have kids and our property taxes are very high in New Jersey here. And we're thinking of and I've done research on this, trying to find a nice little community that is blue and not red, and people will understand that. I'm a flaming liberal.
Okay.
That will afford me my space and will afford her space, because she's got her things that she wants to do and I have things that I want to do.
That's exciting. That's exciting.
And I'm looking for I'm researching towns first, and then I'm looking for houses in towns that, I mean, if we sell this, we can probably afford to pay cash for something, because what we have here, the property values are just really, really high, and we can get a ton of money.
Choose a date, because you don't want to get stuck in research.
The thing is it's not up to me. It's an hour kind of decision, and I'm moving it more into her direction, because she still wants to work. She still wants to treat patients. She's a physical therapist. She's her own boss. She works just up the road. She could walk to work, but she doesn't. But that's up to her. When she wants to not give up that life, but to slow down in that life, then you
guys will know, won't you? It's one of those things you'll know. Yeah.
And hopefully it'll happen before they put me in the ground.
60 years. 60 years from now.
Yeah.
A funny joke, words of wisdom. What would you like to leave people
Funny
with?
joke. Life is like a sewer. The more you put into it, you only get out of it when you put into it. Life
Be
is
careful.
like
it could end up the title of your show.
yeah. Life is like a hamburger, a little mustard, a little ketchup, a few bites, and it's all gone. I don't know. Jokes. What do I want to leave with people?
Yeah. What would you, if they remember nothing else about this call and this hour with you, what would you like them to remember? And even the very, very new narrators. We were talking about the new narrators, because you're the newbie whisperer. They all love you. So what would you leave people with?
Man, that's rough. Be true to yourself. Don't be an asshole, and try to get along with everybody if you can. And if you can't, tell them they're an asshole. I don't know.
That's pretty much it sums it all up.
Yeah.
I think.
I mean, I try as best I can to get along with people if I can, when I can. But if I can't,
you stand up for yourself.
Oh yeah. No, I don't back down. I don't back down. And I don't apologize for anything. I will admit that I'm wrong, but I won't give a non-apology apology just to give an apology, because what I thought at that moment was what I thought.
I've never heard a non-apology apology.
If
I've
I'm
never
wrong,
heard
I'm
that.
wrong.
I do that.
Yeah. Well, everybody does. Politicians do it. I'm sorry if I offended, if what I said offended anybody.
I hate
That's
that.
a non-apology apology.
A non-apology apology.
I'm sorry I said that. It was wrong. That's an apology.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if I offended somebody. It's not an apology. That's a non-apology apology.
I'm sorry, mixed in with a bunch of thank yous and pleases.
Yeah, but
I've tried
to take the word sorry out of my vocabulary and out of my writing, because it's just a word that I'm uncomfortable with. Like, people don't like fuck, and people don't like shit, and people don't like all these other kind of things. I do not like the word sorry, because I am not sorry. If I said something in a moment, even in a heated moment, if I said something that I thought was true at that moment that I know now is not true, and I will say I was wrong, but I won't say I'm sorry I said that, because
it's important to live your life.
You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube.
And do the best you can in the moment. If you're saying you're sorry all the time.
Back in the tube. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're saying you're sorry all the time, then what? You weren't doing the best you could at the moment? You know what I mean? Why are you having to apologize? I literally
So don't anybody
apologize.
ever say you're sorry again
Yeah, no
about
more. I'm
anything.
never going to do it ever again, even if I do something disgusting and
Never, 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 never. No more sorry. I'm not sorry.
Thanks so much for joining us, James. You guys, I was telling James because I had the flu for 2 weeks. I just felt rubbish. I thought, oh gosh, I've got a Joe call, and I love my calls, but you know, it takes energy to talk to someone. I thought, oh, it's James. Because when it's like, you know, hanging out with old friends. Thank you so much. And I will
Sure.
send you the chat because everyone had only kind things to say. So,
Oh boy. Got a lot to live up to, I guess, huh?
but it was lovely chatting with you. This was the perfect pre-Halloween call, and I will be chasing you again next year.
Okay. Hopefully I'll have more things to pontificate about next year.
You will, because you've had a rich and varied life, and you're becoming more talented and more prolific every day. So,
well, that's the thing, the Facebook stuff. The reason that I put as much effort into my answers to certain people as I do is that I'm truly trying to help them. I'm not trying to berate anybody. I'm not trying to talk down to anybody. I'm not trying to tell them that I'm smarter than they are or anything like that. I'm truly trying to help you.
You
Yeah, I'm
truly
truly
are trying to help
you.
And you're never patronizing, and you're never impatient. And the amount of time you put into helping people is you help more people than you realize.
Yeah, I'm also a problem solver. So, I mean, that's just part of my DNA. Give me a problem and I'll come up with a solution for you, or I'll try. Or
I love that.
You know.
I love that.
But
Thank
you cross
you,
me, you're fucking dead. You're dead to me.
Isn't
you
that the
me,
one? Isn't that off The Sopranos or something? Or The Godfather?
I know what you did, Fredo. I know what you did.
On that note,
bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining. See you soon. Bye. Bye.